Alrighty, getting there, getting there. So all we have left really is we're going to make some info. Just going to lay out some info for the guys on the work page with some icons and stuff. Also, whenever you have extrusion that needs to be cut, otherwise all of this is router. That's great. But sometimes you need to go into the actual, gross real world, and you have to go take a chunk off the wall of extrusion and actually cut it with a saw like an animal. You got to let them know how big is it, what do you expect, all that kind of stuff. So we're going to lay that information out, and then it's going to be probably the last video will be making the pages, naming the pages, and going ahead and laying all this out for DXF. So, but yeah, real quick. So so down here on Mr. Goodbar, there's icons, that button that'll pop up this widget. This will create all the icons that I use for showing lords or welding or anything like that. So I want, and at this point, the homies in the back, they see this and they're like, oh, I already know. I see a offset box that's a different size, pop open the lords, obviously. However, just want to make sure, because sometimes it's like, hey, watch out for this or watch out for that. So anyway, but yeah, so what I'll do is I'll cruise over here and I have Lord gun right here. That's epoxy. So this mimics the smaller boy. The Lord's gun these days doesn't quite look like this anymore. RIP, old timey. So tell us about that, Grandpa. So what I'm going to do is just kind of point it at what needs to be Lordsed. Again, these guys already know, but I want it to be Lordsed plus mechanical. I did make these rivetable, but oftentimes they'll just want to shoot a screw because they're lazy. But yeah, it's fine. They'll shoot a self-tapper. So I add a plus and I have that right here. Or I'll have an or if they want to dealer's choice. But I'm thinking that plus impact driver. So that lets them know that I'm looking for, Clico it together, make sure it's got good lords, and then just for ha-has to make sure nothing happens. And then I just kind of pick what looks good as far as layout, make sure it's clear, not cluttered, make sure it's, it's very clear to them what's happening. So that lets them know that spot there. But then I'll also make sure that, it's clear there. Now, if things are getting I might just shrink everything a little bit, just like that. And then maybe give this guy a tilt. Again, I don't spend too much time on this, but there's a way to make it look, like there's action going on. There you go. I like that. So let's go ahead and shrink that down. And we'll just take this homie and we'll duplicate this up. There we go. So that way they know that this whole area gets lordsed, and then I can just copy that to right there. So that way it's clear that I'm expecting that all the way around. Now, I might put it there, but it might just get too cluttered, because you just don't want to block information. But that'll be enough to figure out that, yeah, this is kind of that. Cool. And then I'm also looking for that down here, which again, they know this by now. They see this, they're like, oh yeah, I already know, dude. Shut up. But again, it's best to not. This only takes 30 seconds to a minute, and now it's nailed down. So no excuses. But just make sure you're passing on that information, that knowledge transfer. So that's that. That's that. They already know that skins gets lordsed on. You don't have to tell them, oh, this gets lordsed on. But they already know. Sometimes what I'll also do is just drop that in between the parts. So I'll make this go back to 0, give it a little bit of love like that. And then, because everyone reads left to right, I'll go like that. And then I'll just hit, while we're here, let's just use this. There you go. And then impact. There you go. So that's in between those parts. So they can kind of tell yeah, that's this piece, that's this piece. Maybe make a little room. So definitely a separation between church and state. There you go. So that's very clear that as they work on track. So same thing here. I'm just going to go like this. So that way they know that as you go this way, it's clear. Because they see these holes and it's like, what are these holes for? Well, you check the PDF, check the rhyme. There we go. We can bring this in a little bit. Now this guy, I could go, oh, let's put him over here out of the way. No, I want him to stay on track. That's why he's there. Kind of in the net. He's a little bit annoying. He's in the way, but that's where he stays because that's on track this way. All right. So that's that. I got that kind of laid out. Now, when you have a post, how far in the ground? We're using our judgment on this because we're not really going to get, it doesn't need, it's not that we're not going to get, it does not need to be structurally engineered. It's more of a garden thing. It's fine. It's a almost temporary sign. But using our judgment of what we've done in the past, I'm going to go for a 3 foot in the ground. Worst case scenario, install can chop some off if they need to, but that way we make sure that this is not going anywhere. But how do they know that? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this sign because I have all this room over here. I'm just going to send this over, right, on track. And then I'm going to get rid of the icons just for this. So if I hit send it, I have a button for icons. Icon button right there. There you go. So icons are out of the way. And then now I've got this post here. So I'm going to center it up with that. There we go. Now I'm going to color code. So I'll say, thank you for your service. I'll say this orange and this is blue, this light blue. I like that light blue. Let's go purple. The orange is a little tough. There you go. So I'm going to send that to the back. Okay. So now I can break this out. There you go. That's good. So now what I'm going to do is take a, well, I can just take its own rectangle. We'll do that. I know I can hear you right now. Just use the dimensions. No, because the dimensions is its own nightmare. It's so, dimensions is so clunky. So I just take that. I just break this apart. And then I hit this. And when I hit sizey right here, it just throws it on there for me anyway. So that's 36. And they kind of know everything's 36. They know it's in inches. I don't have to put the inch mark. They get it. If it's something different, I make sure to make them, let them know. But so 36 inches in ground. And then what I'll also do, just to make sure, again, ambiguity, I do a plus and a minus just to let them know that I ain't sweating it. Do the best you can, but it's plus or minus because I gave them this much up here. So even if this is down a little bit or up a little bit, I ain't sweating it. I will put a note though, if it has to be. I'll say, hey, heads up. We ain't playing. It's got to be 36. Like, get your micrometer out because, it has to count. So I oftentimes, with signs, it's very rarely that way, but I try to give homies an out. I try to make it not so much that, oh my gosh. So, and then maybe if I'm being generous, I might do this where I can go ahead and just give them, then hit break apart, get rid of that one. And then I'll do that. And then I'll hit Y. There you go. Just to clarify, but it doesn't have to be like, whatever's left over. If they do 36 out, obviously it's what's left over, but I'll clarify just to make sure, but it's kind of self-building at that point. Anyway, that's the idea. Now I'm going to give them a cut list. So you know that this is 2 different sections, but this is 70. So I'm going to turn it this way and we're going to make a printable PDF over here. It's full size, but now we're going to hit BAM and then I'm going to get rid of that. And then I like that color. And then I'm going to hit sizey. And that gives me X for 70. Okay, we're good. We're good. Thank you. Thank you. So now I'm going to come over here onto Mr. Goodbar and it says BAM plus. So what this does is BAM makes a rectangle around whatever's selected, right? But so if you go like that and you hit BAM, but if you hit BAM plus, it's a percentage more of the bounding box. So I have it set at default for half. So if you hit BAM plus, you get that. But if you hit BAM, 90 or whatever, you might get a lot more. But so for right now, that's how that works. But yeah, you can stretch it a little bit. So what I do is I try to mimic, it doesn't have to be to scale, but I mimic an 11 by 17 because they'll print it on that. So the size of the part goes here. If it's just one, that's fine. Sometimes I'll put quantity here, or I will use this to estimate like if you know that a piece is, you know, 20 feet, then how many can you get? I'll use that in like real time. And I know that's 283, so I can maybe get rid of that one. So 240? Yes, 212. So I'll leave it like this to show them that I'm getting 3 out of a stick. And then if we're doing a lot of parts, I'll do it like that. So that way they know that it's 70, 70, 70, you know, and I'll do like that. And they'll get a whole sheet of paper and they'll just go check, 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 check. But it'll also help them to know that, you know, this is 240. So bring in 2 sticks or whatever. So anyway, but we only got 1. That's it. And then I'm going to tell them what the material is. So I go over here to Launchpad and I type like an animal. I've thought about making a drop down. I will one of these days, but time. Now I'm just going to do 1/8. Probably 3/16 is the best idea. But this will be fine. Aluminum square, and I use SQ tube. And again, this is kind of what they're looking for. So 3x3 are the dimensions. And then T is wall thickness. So 0.125 aluminum square tube. And then just to drive the point home, I take my tube maker and I go 3x3 by 1/8 inch wall. And I make this guy so it's a visual representation. Because sometimes on a big project, this list gets cray cray. It's like it's so many things. So it helps sometimes to see that, or sometimes it helps to see that if it's round tube. It just gives a quick visual confirmation. Or if it's a 3x4 rectangle or something, you know, it's like it gives a representation of what's going on. So it just makes it easier. Again, just trying to help your brother out. Oops. There we go. And then again, we're trying to just bring this more of like a printable thing. So this might actually be a little big. It comes out at 4. Let's go 3. Not I like that. So that way it's just a little less like, you know, and then this is the main, that's the main course. So I'll just tidy that up. And then that's bringing it more 11x17. I like that. All right. So now what we do is throw a border on this. So if you come over here, see where this decimal thing is. This is so you don't have to go over and mess with the actual Corel. You can just grab a 3-inch real quick. And then I like magenta, way too big. Okay, so let's do 3/4. There you go. I like that. Then under symbols, you come over here to Miami Vice Edgar. Now this is an inside joke. Edgar isn't always the guy who cuts these, but when you see Edgar looky, it was me. We used to joke that, yeah, your job is to cut all this. So, and of course it's Edgar. So Edgar looky is just what the title is for this. So now when they're looking at this page, you can see how quick it is to be like, oh, Edgar looky, cut list. So this will be on this page, but I also make a separate PDF. They print this. So good to go. So Edgar looky is very clear that you're going to be cutting a 70-inch piece of 3x3 by 1/8 inch wall. No questions. And then also, I always forget this. Not always. But when you're dealing with a post that's going to go into concrete, you want to cap it. Also, this post, if it was just straight, the concrete could let go. And theoretically, you could grab the sign and slide it out of the concrete once it's all cured. It's been there for years. Very unlikely, but it could happen. They get loose. So if you put a cap that's a little bigger, it gets trapped. And there's no way it's ever coming out unless you pull all of the concrete out. So because we're dealing with 3x3, I'm just going to make a 4x4, and that gives that much more around. And then just so the homies, you know, just to make their life a little easier, I am going to do a 3x3. And then I'm going to put an offset, and then I'm going to do reference kiss. And then that reference kiss is going to go there. And then we're going to round the corners just to, you know, keep people from getting hurt. Let's throw a 1/4 on that. There we go. And we know that this is aluminum. And we know that it needs to be a through shape. There you go. So that's the cap. I'm going to go ahead and put that over here too, just so that we all know it exists. Like that. but even though it's there and there, it's whatever. Now we're doing 1/4 inch. So I might send this as 1/4 inch because that. Now, if there wasn't any 1/4 inch coming, I would probably just send this as 09. It's probably still fine as 09, but I'm going to go ahead and send it as 1/4 just because we want it to be that much stronger. But it's only because I can throw it on over here. He's already got this on the table, but I wouldn't make him, we usually have enough drop, but could you imagine saying, hey, I got a 4x4 little chunk of aluminum. I need you to throw an entire sheet for this little square. I would hope we wouldn't do that. That would suck. All right, info's there. I think we're good. Here comes the fire truck. So yeah, Lord screw, we're good. We got all that. You guys know how that works. Any more info to pass on? This is good to go. You know what I'll do is I'll throw my lookies on there, just so that it calls attention. If I want to call attention to something, you get your looky out, and he's checking it out. So there you go. There's that. Just so that way it's like, okay, don't forget over here. But I don't think there's anything else that's really looky worthy per se. Like once they see that, they know what's up. It's only stuff that's like, hey, we've never done this before. Check it out. But otherwise, yeah. We might actually even do this. Might even just do this on a separate PDF too, but I don't think I need to. The guys will figure it out from the PDF. So, just so you know, since this is a teaching thing, what I would do here, just to ensure that they know. Of course they know, but you never know. Is I take this is the spool gun for welding for aluminum anyway, but even steel. This is overkill, but this would just let them know that you're expecting this to be tacked to the inside frame, and that's what the spool gun's for. And then you can just grab all three, duplicate, mirror, nudge, 16th nudge, get it right about there. There you go. Very clear. I'm expecting that to be tacked in, and it's supposed to be 36 and everything. But of course, they already do that. But anyway, and because everything's on track, it's very easy to just grab these, and then if you want to make sure that they get there you go. And they know. That's silly. But yeah, there you go. Just in case you don't know. I don't know. Nobody told me. Yeah, I did. I told you. Look. Alrighty, so that's it. Information, as you can see, everything's ready to go. Now it's time for laying out pages, but I'm going to do that here in the next chunk.